Welcome to a new episode.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Qualifications podcast. As always, I'm your host, Chris Baylor, and if you're a plumbing student, apprentice, or just someone curious about how the water gets to your tap every morning, you're exactly in the right place. This is episode 29, and today we're diving into something you'll encounter on almost every domestic job you'll ever work on: direct cold water systems. Now, I know what you're thinking, Chris, it's just pipes bringing water into the house, right? Well, yes, but also no. Because understanding how these systems work, why they're designed the way they are, and what can go wrong is the difference between being a plumber who just fits pipes and being a professional who solves problems. So grab a brew, get comfortable, let's talk about one of the most fundamental systems in modern plumbing. Alright then, let's start with the basics. What actually is a direct cold water system? Imagine this: you wake up, stumble into the kitchen, turn the tap on and the water flows out. Simple, right? But here's the thing: that water has travelled from a reservoir or underground aquifer, been treated at a water treatment plant, pumped through miles of trunk mains, down your street, through your boundary stop tap, up your service pipe, and finally out into your kitchen tap. All at mains pressure. No storage tank in the loft. No cistern, just direct supply from the water company's network straight to every outlet in your home. That's a direct system. And that is one of the simplest, most effective ways to supply potable drinking water to your property. Now, here's why this matters to you as a student or an apprentice. In modern housing, especially new builds, direct systems are everywhere. They're cost effective, they save space, and they reduce the risk of contamination because there's no stored water sitting in a tank, gathering dust or worse. But, and this is the big but, they're only as good as the mains pressure feeding them. If the mains drops, the whole system suffers. No backup, no reserve, just you, the homeowner, and a very weak shower. So let's talk about where the water actually comes from. In the UK, around 70% of our drinking water comes from surface water, rivers, lakes and reservoir. The rest comes from groundwater, which is water stored underneath a natural rock formations called aquifers. If you're working in the southeast of England, you're more likely to see groundwater sources because it's drier down there. Up north and in Wales, it's mostly surface water. Now, all of this water starts as rain. It's part of the natural water cycle. Rain falls, collects in rivers or soaks into the ground, gets treated, then pumped into the mains network. And here's the thing: every drop of the water has to meet strict UK water supply regulations. It's tested, monitored and controlled to make sure it's safe to drink. As a plumber, you're the last line of defence in that chain. Once the water enters the property, you're responsible for making sure it stays clean, safe and compliant. That's a big responsibility, and it is why understanding the regulation isn't just box ticking, it's about protecting public health. Alright, so the water's been treated and it's in the mains. How does it get to the property? This is where the distribution network comes in. Water companies pump treated water through a massive network of pipes, trunk mains, distribution mains, and finally service mains that run down your street. The water company is responsible for everything up to the property boundary. That's where you'll find the boundary stop tap, which allows the supply to be isolated for maintenance. Once the water crosses the boundary, it becomes the property owner's responsibility, and often your responsibility as the installer. The pipe that connects the boundary to the property is called a service pipe. It has been buried at least 750 mil deep to protect it from freezing. In older properties, you might find lead or iron pipes still in use, but modern installations use MDPE, that's medium density polyethylene, usually in blue, and it is tough, flexible and safe. The service pipe enters the building, usually through the kitchen or the hallway, and connects to the internal stop valve. This is the valve that lets the homeowners, or you, isolate the entire water supply in the property. It's got to be accessible, labelled and WRAS-approved. WRAS stands for Water Regulation Advisory Scheme, and it's the gold standard for fitting in the UK. Now, let's talk about what happens inside the property. In a direct system, the raising main comes up from the stop tap valve and branches out to feed every outlet. Kitchen sink, bathroom taps, toilets, washing machines, dishwashers, you name it, it's on the direct supply. The key thing here is that every outlet is supplied with potable water at mains pressure. Here's where good design comes in. You need to fit service valves on every appliance branch. Why? Because if you have a washing machine starting to leak at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night, you don't want to have to shut down the entire house to fix it. A service valve lets you isolate just that one appliance. Simple, but it makes life so much easier. You also need a drain-off valve at the lowest point in the system. This lets you empty the whole system for repairs, frost protection or maintenance. Without it, you're in for a very wet and frustrating day. And here's a pro tip. Keep your branches short and direct. Long unused pipe runs is what we call dead legs and are hygiene risks. Water sits there, stagnates, and then becomes a breeding ground for bacteria. The regulations are clear on how to avoid dead legs wherever possible. Let's talk about the advantages of a direct system, because there are plenty. First up, potable water to every outlet. You can drink from any tap in the house. That's a big deal for safety and convenience. Secondly, simplicity. No loss system means less pipe work, fewer fittings, quicker installation and lower costs. For the homeowner, it also means more usable loss space. And thirdly, less maintenance. No tank to clean, no ball valves to adjust, no risk of overflow. It's a low maintenance solution that just works if the mains pressure is good. But, and here's where it gets real, direct systems aren't perfect. The biggest disadvantage is the reliance on mains pressure. If the water company's pressure drops, maybe because of high demand in your area or maintenance work, or an old, undersized main, your system suffers. Weak showers, slow-filling toilets, frustrated customers. And if there's a main supply interruption, you get no water at all, no stored reserve, nothing. And then there's the noise. High mains pressure can cause water hammer, that banging sound when you shut off a tap quickly. It's annoying and it can damage the pipework over time. You can fix it with shock arresters or proper pipe clipping, but it's something to be aware of. And in large households with multiple bathrooms, you might find the running 2 showers at once just doesn't work. The flow rate drops and everyone's unhappy. Here's a real life example. I once worked on a semi-detached property when a family complained about weak showers every morning. Turns out the mains pressure was fine most of the day, but during peak demand, when everyone on the street was getting ready for work, it dropped like a stone. The solution was we installed an accumulator to store a small reserve of pressurised water. Problem solved, but it added cost and complexity. Now let's talk about regulations, because this is where a lot of students switch off, but trust me, this stuff matters. Everything we do with water systems is governed by the Water Supplies Water Fittings Regulation 1999. These regulations exist to prevent waste, misuse and contamination. They're enforced by your local water authority and they have real teeth. If you install a non-compliant system, the water authority can issue a reflection notice, refuse to connect you to the mains, or even take legal action. So what do the regulations say? Well, all fittings must be WRAS-approved. You must prevent backflow with non-return valves where there's a contamination risk. You must avoid dead legs. You must insulate pipework in unheated areas to prevent freezing, and you must pressure test the system before commissioning. It's not complicated, but it's non-negotiable. And here's the thing, these regulations protect you as much as they protect the public. If you follow them, you're covered. If you don't, you're liable. Let's talk about some of the key components you'll be working with. Stop valves. These isolate the whole system. They're usually screwdriver operated and they need to be accessible and labelled. Then we have service valves. These isolate individual appliances. Quarter-turn plug valves are common, quick, easy and reliable. And then drain-off valves, small fittings at the lowest point that can let you empty the system. They should be capped when not in use. And then non-return valves. These prevent backflow and protect the mains from contamination. Absolutely essential on appliances like washing machines and dishwashers. And then there's the pipework. Copper is traditional, durable, easy to solder, tried and tested. Plastic is lighter and quicker to install, but you must use pipe inserts to prevent the pipe collapsing when you're tightening fittings. Both are fine as long as they're WRAS-approved and installed correctly. Okay, so before I wrap up, let me leave you with this. Direct cold water systems are simple, but they're not basic. They require good design, proper component selection, and careful installation. They're governed by strict regulations, and for good reason, because the water you're supplying is going to be drunk, cooked with, and bathed by real people. As a student or an apprentice, this is your foundation. Master this and you're ready to tackle more complex systems. Ignore it and you'll struggle. So here's my challenge to you. Next time you're on site, trace the rising main, identify the stop valves, service valves, and the drain-off valves. Ask questions, understand why things are where they are, because that's how you're going to go from fitting pipes to being a professional. All right, that's it for episode 29 of the Copper Connection podcast. I hope you found that useful. If you did, make sure you hit the follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We've got loads more coming, everything from heating systems to gas safety to career advice for apprentices. And if you've got any questions or there's a topic you want me to cover, drop me a message. I read every single one. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep connecting. I've been Chris Bailey, and you've been listening to the Copper Connection podcast.
We'll be back next week. In the meantime, please subscribe and thanks for listening.